Good morning, Cherries fans, and welcome to this latest episode of Cherry Picking Up the Cherries in All Departments. This is episode number 21. I've got two familiar faces with me, and we're on both YouTube and Spotify today. So, hello to everybody on Spotify, and of course, I have got the two familiar faces, Mr. Matthew Harrison. How are you doing, Matt?
Morning, Craig. Having my morning cup of tea. Happy
Excellent.
days.
Likewise. I've got my AFC Bournemouth mug, as has Matt for anybody on Spotify, and of course we do have Manny as well. How you doing, Manny?
All good. I feel like the odd man out because I don't have any Bournemouth jerseys or mugs like the two of you, but then that's what I get for being an interloper, I guess. Always happy to come on cherry picking and can't wait to begin once again.
Excellent, and great to have you back as well. And it's been a very, very busy week here at the Cherries and All Departments. If you are listening on Spotify, you might want to check out a couple of shows on the channel. All you need to do is go to youtube.com/UTCIAD I know that's a bit of a tongue twister, but there we go. We don't make it easy for you. So let's start off with the breaking news and the rumours going around, really, isn't it? And it involves a certain Philip Billing. Go on, Matt. You tell us what have you heard about this?
Well, there was quite a bit of talk about it, wasn't there, back in sort of January time. I think he was quite heavily linked to, I think, Valencia at one point. Or Villarreal, one of the two. But yeah, a bit of news circulating yesterday in a couple of the tabloids that Newcastle are now considering a move for Mr. Billing.
Yep. And of course, Eddie Howe was the man that brought Philip Billing to AFC Bournemouth. Could you see him slotting into the Newcastle team, Manny?
Difficult question. I know he's normally a midfielder who's capable of scoring some pretty good goals. And obviously, when you take a look at the midfield of Newcastle, which is a little bit, I want to say a little bit light, but deceptively fairly effective. Joe Willock, Sean Longstaff, Joe Linton, or whoever else might be in there. And we all know that Eddie Howe enjoys playing the 4-3-3 up at Newcastle. It'll be difficult to see where Billing comes in. He could actually be used as more of a striking option. So, like for example, if there are injuries to any of the front three, he could end up slotting in as more of that false nine in the middle. And of course, he doesn't necessarily lead the line, but he certainly has a good shot on him. And certainly, if Eddie Howe wants to transition to a 4-4-2 at any particular point, Billing can just come back into the midfield and work his magic. So he could certainly add some strength to that midfield if Howe is completely interested, although there are chances he might want to go for someone else, depending on how far Newcastle go this season in their race for Europe and where they eventually finish. And there are some signs that they're finding it difficult to secure that Champions League position. It's always the case that in the most difficult races, it's the last few meters that are the most difficult. And we are into the final stretch. So it would be a decent move. Spain could perhaps be an option. There might be some other clubs who would certainly do with a guy like him who could play either in midfield or as a forward. He certainly could be used as more of a midfield pivot by several of those Spanish teams. But given how crucial he's been to your team this season, I must say, I'd like to see the club do whatever they can to make sure they keep him and make sure he stays, because next season he is going to be key for you lot, and I am more increasingly confident that you will stay up. So it's one thing to stay up, but you've also got to make sure you build on that.
Yeah.
Matt, playing devil's advocate here, though, with regards to Gary O'Neill and Eddie Howe, of course, Eddie is an absolute legend at this football club, but do you feel that Gary O'Neill is potentially getting more out of Philip Billing than Eddie did?
Bit of a difficult one, that, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
obviously they only worked together for really the one season, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And I would say the players developed in that period of time.
Mhm. Yeah.
Obviously, he's become a lot better. I think he's really found his best position behind the front
Mhm.
man.
Yeah.
Because I think he can play deeper, but I think his strongest point is playing in behind the forward. To say whether Gary O'Neill's got the better of him, he's definitely having the better of the performances from the player, I would probably say.
Yeah.
But whether that's down to Gary O'Neill or whether that's just down to the player's personal development, it's a bit of a tricky one to really put your finger on that one. I would say, but yeah, it's just as well. Gary O'Neill is having the best of Billing's time here because he's been absolutely crucial this season, like Manny's just said. And for us to potentially lose him, be a
Mhm.
massive void to fill. You look at it from the player's perspective. If Newcastle do get Champions League football, then that's going to be a massive pull for the player. So it's all about the player's career and the player's ambition with something like this, isn't it?
Yeah.
He knows he's not going to be playing European football with Bournemouth next season. Newcastle come knocking and they're in Europe. He's an international that wants to be a regular international. And where's best to play than Champions League or European football? So for me, it will go down to this. If there is any truth behind this, and Newcastle are teeing up this potential transfer, then it'll be down to the players' ambition. I personally believe. I don't think he'd want to leave the club, but at the same time, if he is getting that opportunity, and how many times will that come around in his career?
Yeah.
He's having his best form, and obviously, I think if he did go to Newcastle, obviously he'd improve their midfield. But obviously, from our point of view, we don't want to lose the player.
Yeah. Completely agree. And here's one for both of you, really. Of course, Jefferson Lerma is expected to leave the football club at the end of this season. It's been muted to quite a lot that that's going to be what's going to happen. Losing Billing as well, a position where, in particular, which is a strength, which is our centre of midfield, could start to look a little bit shaky because Lewis Cook is a very, very capable player, as we all both know, Matt.
Yeah,
And Manny,
yeah.
you probably rate Lewis Cook very highly, but
Hmm.
he is injury prone. This is the problem. And do you feel that this is going to leave us a little bit light in the centre of midfield? And could Ben Pearson, come back into reckoning, or do you think that we're going to spend some money in that area?
To replace those two, for me, be interested to hear what Manny's about to say. But for me, that would be if we lose both players, we will have to delve into the transfer market.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, obviously, when you take a look in the centre of midfield, those two are quite pivotal players there. And, you do have some other midfielders who can certainly play a role. I mean, you mentioned Lewis Cook, who is, of
Yeah.
course, injury prone, and definitely you will have to go into the transfer market. But maybe there is some hope of keeping Billing. Because just to piggyback off what Matthew was saying about how a player might have the ambition to, test himself at a higher level, I'm reminded of an old age proverb: "Be careful for what you wish, because you might just end up getting it." You'll be a part of a Champions League team, but will you necessarily get to play? I remember saying earlier on that he could certainly come in and slot into that midfield. The only problem is with the increased competition for places, does he really want to run the risk of becoming potentially a bit part player if he doesn't quite fit into the system at Newcastle? Obviously, Eddie Howe might rate him, but then, clubs in the Champions League or in Europe will do whatever they want to try and make sure they get the players they want for their squad. And of course, with Howe having worked with Billing before, it does seem to be a no-brainer. But of course, as Ryan Fraser has found out, um, previous work experience with the manager doesn't guarantee that things are going to be hunky-dory the next time. So I actually believe that if Billing is enjoying himself at Bournemouth and he really wants to, continue to be the main man in a way, and he is one of the main men at Bournemouth right now, playing games, scoring goals, and playing a pivotal role. Why would you want to give up a good thing? It's a bit like Emi Martinez making it crystal clear that he's not interested in any offers from big teams, and that he wants to be a part of the Aston Villa revolution under Unai Emery, and the performances that he's been putting in and the way the club's been rising, it's some proof that so far that his decision could be the correct one. Whatever happens in subsequent seasons, of course, that bridge will be crossed when it arrives. But for the moment, if things are going well, why would you want to leave?
Yep. Yeah, completely agree. Do we really need to sell now? That's the thing, is because with Bill Foley's money, I don't think we need to be, where years ago, if we had a, very, very good player, even in the Eddie years when we was, of course, when we was relegated to Championship, you know, Nathan Ake, 47 million, Callum Wilson, we might not be able to keep hold of those, but because of their own ambitions. But there was other players that maybe we could have during that time. So I think personally, that's another thought as well. Bill Foley is in no need to actually sell this player. He has been quite generous in the transfer market, and therefore he might think, well, we're not going to be held to ransom by Newcastle. Of course, if Newcastle offer a silly amount, then that might be a completely different thing. But I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, Phil Bill will still be a Bournemouth player at the start of next season.
Agreed. I mean, he's top billing at Bournemouth, pun intended. Why would he want to go somewhere else where he isn't top billing?
Do you know what Manny has got? You have got you got the gift of the gab, have you? You got brilliant. It's brilliant.
I try. I mean, listen, I obviously listen to a lot of people, watch a lot of people on the telly, and those turns of phrases, you see, people don't forget them very easily. I'm a bit surprised that nobody else picked up on that, to be frank.
I think it's been mentioned before somewhere, but not on here. So let's have a look at the Hall of Fame. Let's see who else is top billing. And drum roll, please. Here we go. It's only Harry. Harry, our friend Harry, who, of course, he is a friend of the show. Absolutely lovely man, and he is joining the likes of Fletch, Luther Blizzett, Ted McDougall in the UTC IAD Hall of Fame. And let's be honest, he's not just a Hall of Famer for AFC Bournemouth as a manager and a player. I think he's a legend of this podcast, isn't he, really?
Yes.
Because don't forget, we actually have 5 videos of Harry on this channel. I'm not a stalker, honestly, but no. Harry is an absolutely lovely bloke who will do anything for anybody, and it's a pleasure as always to have him on. So the 3 most recent videos First one is about the 3-2 win against Tottenham Hotspur. So, of course, that tremendous win at the weekend. It's something that is going to be timeless. Really, that I never saw us winning up there. Never saw us winning up there. But what a result, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's going to be up there with the all-time great Premier League wins. It's just proving that that the players are fighting to the death at the minute, and what a massive 3 points. I mean, I would have been really happy with a draw up there, but
Mhm.
on the day we played absolutely superbly. So I mean, we deserved that big time.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. And the thing about a win like that is that, as Matt has said, you lot were good value for that win. You certainly had the measure of them, and they at times didn't even know how to contain you or deal with you. And
Mhm.
it would have been a little bit of a travesty of justice if they had gone on to win. And I suppose it might be justice served after that. Shall we say, fortuitous result for Spurs against Brighton?
Yeah. That's fair to say. Fair to say. But I tell you what a remarkable win, and that has to go. It's right up there with some of the biggest wins in this football club's history, because that shiny stadium. Spurs, okay, weren't in great form, but I think it's a remarkable result against that team. A team
Oh, yes.
containing Harry Kane, of course, the England striker. The second video, though, this was released on Monday night. Um, this is an interesting one, and in fact, it's gone viral. This video. It's about Harry Redknapp on the relegation battle. We've been featured in the Leicester Mercury. We've also been featured on Molyneux News, which of course covers Wolverhampton Wanderers. The Nottingham Post. I think it was Liverpool News, Goodison News. I think even in the Echo as well, the Liverpool Echo. So yes, being featured. Unfortunately, this is what's bugging me. Um, it wasn't actually mentioned in our Echo. I don't think it has it yet, unless you can tell me differently.
Well, it
No,
might
not
be might be delayed, I would say, and
Mhm.
it's probably a case of letting everyone else have that press, and maybe the Bournemouth Echo will revisit that as and when the time comes. But listen, I'm pretty certain the Bournemouth won't forget about this that easily. Don't forget.
Yeah, I think so. Um, yeah, to be honest, Harry's mentioned a lot in the Bournemouth Echo, so hey, we'll let him off. And of course, the third episode was Finding the World's Top Talent, and this is a really interesting show because Harry Redknapp goes into, and I've never heard him speak about Gareth Bale before, and I think that was quite interesting. But also Michael Carrick. There was also some stories about Ian Wone and Ian Wright, two that Harry missed out on but detected because he had an eye for a young player, didn't he, from non-league, and I think that's what brought him so much success.
yeah. In his Bournemouth days, you know, he, I mean, I think he said before, he'd be out and about, watching non-league,
Yeah,
on Tuesday nights and stuff like that. Going out and plucking players from non-league might actually be a good program to do in the future. Um, Looking at
yes,
all the non-league players that Harry brought through the ranks to Bournemouth and who went on to do and went on to better things. I mean, to be fair, all his transfer dealings at Bournemouth, well, I say all of them, there were some howlers, but I mean, a majority of his signings at Bournemouth went on to better things.
And to be honest, every manager has howlers. Eddie did, really. Jordan Ibe didn't
Yeah,
take off. Emerson Hydeman didn't take off. Aturbe. There's quite a lot you could name that didn't come off, even for Eddie Howe. And Harry's exactly the same. I remember, and actually, after I asked him about the worst player that he signed, he was quite conservative in his approach, that he didn't really want to name any players. But I have since found an article. Can you remember a guy called Boogers that used to play for West Ham?
Marco Boogers?
is this
Yes.
the guy that couldn't speak a word of English and did one out of a hotel room? He went to the
Some
hotel to get him because apparently I think was it that he hadn't turned up for training, and they got to the
Yes.
hotel and the receptionist was telling him that he was definitely in his hotel room, and they found out that he did one out the window and legged it.
Yeah, I think so. I think I can't be 100% sure, but I don't think he had the best of attitudes, according to this article. You'll have to research it, but have a look for Harry Redknapp's worst signings, and it's it's quite funny, because Harry tells us in his normal words, really, of why they were so terrible, but yeah, every manager has that. But let's be honest, he struck gold more than he struck Duffer, really, didn't
Yep. The
he?
great
Yeah.
managers always do that. They always somehow
Yes.
find more gold than otherwise. And that's the thing about some of these Dutch players. They can either be solid professionals or they're exceptionally temperamental. And the history of this Premier League will teach us that. No doubt
Yes.
about it.
Yep. Definitely. This is the result of the poll. To be honest, it was fairly close. 84 votes in total. Ian Bishop finished second. Stephen Purchase finished third. But I think three big, great players really for Bournemouth, weren't they?
Yeah, obviously Ian Bishop, a lot. I mean, Carl Garwood there put a
Mhm.
comment on one of our Facebook posts about Ian Bishop, a legend. The guy played one season for us, and a lot of people are still very fond of the player.
Yeah.
They still remember watching him back in the 80s. So Perchy. Well, what can you say about Perchy? He's done a lot for this football club. Had a well-deserved
Yes.
testimonial about 10 years ago or so. Obviously, coach, assistant manager. So obviously, he's got a lot of history with the football club.
Mhm.
But obviously, Harry obviously was a West Ham feel for the Hall of Fame last week, because obviously all three have represented West Ham as a
Yep.
player, and obviously Harry as a manager as well. So, I mean, to be honest, the poll was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. I thought Harry was going to just completely run away with it, to be honest. But
Mhm.
so I was quite surprised that he got under 50% of the vote.
Yeah, well, like I say, three great players, and therefore, I think it's people are always going to have their favourites for certain reasons, aren't they? Really. So, yeah, hopefully, that's what makes it exciting. These polls. That's what makes it exciting. But should we have a look at our next contenders?
Well,
Oh,
hold on one
yes.
second.
Well,
That's
there we
how
are.
we
There's the
look at the
Hall of
moment.
Fame.
That's how we look at the moment.
So let's have a look at the next contenders. Go on, Matt. You take it away.
Okay, so obviously, as a lot of Bournemouth fans will know, it's 25 years ago this week that obviously AFC Bournemouth appeared at the Twin Towers at Wembley Stadium in the Auto Windscreen Shield final. So this week's entrants, well, entrants, not the right word, contenders for the Hall of Fame, has got a Wembley feel. Wembley theme, should we say, not feel, theme. So first contender is the man that scored on the day, and still to this date, the only man to score at Wembley for Bournemouth. Because the times we've been there with Tottenham, pretty certain nobody scored, if I remember rightly. I think one of them we got proper hammered. So Mr. Bailey, John Bailey, we signed him from Enfield. He actually played a lot of his career in non-league. Started his career in 1989.
Yeah.
But again, this is another thing that the club has done over the years, with numerous players. I mean, Wade Elliott being another one, and Harry Arter, another one, where we've dived into the non-league market, signed him for £10,000 back in 1995. Played 137 times, scoring 13 goals. Fortunately, I believe it was a back injury that ended his career, his professional career, but he went on to play for Brockenhurst, and a couple of other sides after his professional retirement. But will always be remembered by Bournemouth fans for that day at Wembley.
Well, if anybody else is interested in a story involving Enfield's players, definitely watch that third episode of the Harry Redknapp interview, because that goes into about another one that got away from Enfield. I'll leave it there. You'll have to go watch it. Shall we go for the next one then?
Yeah, the skipper.
What a legend.
My favourite player when he was at Bournemouth. I absolutely loved this guy. First man to lead a Cherry side out at Wembley. Actually was a midfielder. We signed him as a midfielder for Crystal Palace. Mel Machin had this thing about him where he could convert a player into another position, which he did with Coxey. He could see that he was strong, athletic, and he could see that he could mould him into a centre back, and he moulded him into a very, very classy centre back. Had a fantastic partnership with the young Eddie. When Eddie was breaking into the team, partnered Eddie at Wembley at centre back. But his performances were getting a lot of notice for quite some time, and I could always remember him being linked with other clubs. At one point, it was rumoured he was rated at £1 million. But Burnley got a bargain. They signed him for 500,000. I think they signed him on the Tuesday, and he made his debut for Burnley at Dean Court on the Saturday. Seeing him go out the door one day and then making his debut down here for Burnley, a matter of days later. When he was playing centre back, I think it was the 1996-97 season, he actually ended up as top scorer with, I think it was 8 goals that season. I think he scored. But yeah, an absolute legend.
Yeah, definitely. And
a couple more facts about him. Apparently, after retiring from his career as a footballer, he also became a prison guard.
That's correct.
And he also finds a place, technically, although he didn't actually play, in our group of World Cup Cherries, a part of the 2006 squad for Trinidad and Tobago, which went to Germany and shocked the world when they drew with Sweden 0-0. I mean, any team which can keep Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Frederick Ljungberg and company quiet, and Henrik Larsson quiet, is a team that has to be given respect. Of course, their goalkeeper, Shaka Hislop, who played under Harry twice at both West Ham and Portsmouth, was arguably the star of the show, despite not getting the Man of the Match award. Cox, of course, was a part of the squad, didn't get to play, but once he got back to Trinidad and Tobago, he and his teammates were awarded the nation's second highest honour, the Chaconian Medal. So if he wants, he can actually suffix his name as Ian Cox CM if he chooses.
Never knew that. There we go. Never knew that. I don't think that's ever been reported in the Bournemouth media, has it?
Yeah, I think obviously, given that he left Bournemouth quite some time ago and was actually with, if memory serves me right, he might have been with Gillingham when he went to Germany. I'm going to check that up and tell you.
Yeah, I think he was at Gillingham. Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously he might have been out of the... he was at Gillingham, and obviously he might have been out of the consciousness of everyone back at Dean Court, but at the time, obviously people remember him for his club exploits, but when it comes to international exploits, they often go under the radar, really, and given that Coxey was a bit of a bit part player under Leo Beenhacker, he obviously might not have gotten that much in terms of exposure, but no less an important part of the squad that got to Germany, and at least they had their memories.
Most definitely. And I remember watching when England played Trinidad and Tobago. And it's a remarkable achievement to get to the World Cup because it's not a big country. But let's have a look at our third contender. And Russell Beardsmore. Go on, Matt. Take it away.
Yeah, Russell Beardsmore scored a goal at the away leg of the area final. The first leg, which was at Walsall. He popped up with a goal that night. So played an important part to obviously get the club to Wembley. Been known as a Fergie fledgling. Played in similar youth teams to the likes of Ryan Giggs. When he had his testimonial against Southampton back in 2000, Ryan Giggs and Nicky Butt actually turned out for Bournemouth for 45 minutes, which was a pleasure to see back then because it wasn't every day that you saw two Premier League world-class players playing in a Bournemouth shirt. But yeah, he signed from United in 93, made just under 200 appearances for Bournemouth, scoring 7 times. Quite a versatile player as well, from what I can remember. He's actually a midfielder, but I do remember him playing left back quite a bit as well at times when players were injured. So, that's our final contender this week.
There we are. And the poll will be up on Twitter, so please do check over there as well. I think the polls will eventually have to move from Twitter because I believe polls are going to be... it's one of these stupid things I think that Elon Musk is bringing out, where polls are going to be only for the people that have subscribed to the Twitter Blue eventually. And so it can only be posted by people that have signed up to Twitter Blue, and I think it can only be voted on from Twitter Blue as well. Elon might confirm that for us, but no, he probably won't confirm it for me. But there you go. Yeah, he's just penning an email. Yes, yes, it's absolutely fine, Craig. You can still have it. So. Next part, shall we have a look? So we had Lawrence Martin on last week, and he picked the number 33, and a unique number. But there is some big names that wore the 33. Do you want to take it away, Matt?
Well, to be fair, I found this one quite a struggle. Obviously, this was the most easiest one.
Yes, the obvious one.
One. was Mr. Steve Fletcher. Wore the number 33 shirt. Obviously, we know what he achieved while he was wearing that number. But obviously, he was more remembered for, well, when he first started playing for Bournemouth before squad numbers were actually allocated. Just the basic 1 to 11. He used to wear 9, I think, when he first started playing for us.
Yeah.
Before he moved to number 10 a bit later on in his career, and when numbers were allocated from 1999, he was the first player to wear the number 10 shirt. But obviously, he will be forever remembered for wearing the number 33 shirt as well.
There we are. So, yeah, he's the obvious one, isn't he? An absolute legend. The big un, as we call him. Absolute legend.
I just have a question, though. I mean, obviously Fletch has his place in the Hall of Fame, and it's not really uncommon for people to join a club getting a much bigger squad number. Then as they get more and more experience, they end up going to a smaller number. When exactly did Fletch wear the number 33? Was it at the was it near the end of his career, or what's the story? And why would he want?
The end.
Yes. Well, basically, Manny, what happened was, he used to sign. I think, if I remember rightly, he used to sign short contracts, not like. I think he used to sign yearly. When Kevin Bond was manager, he decided to release Fletcher, and Fletch went off to play for Chesterfield and Crawley. It was when Eddie Howe returned, and he took over in the January. Obviously, transfer window open. He wanted to bring someone in to be a voice in the changing room, be a presence, G the guys up. And obviously with Eddie playing with Fletch, knowing Fletch, he knew what Fletch would bring to that changing room. He knew he needed Fletch to help keep this football club up. And there's actually a story where he was tapping Fletcher up, and eventually Steve Evans was manager of Crawley. Eventually Steve Evans let Fletcher have his playing contract back, and he was then free to sign for Bournemouth, which, he was still pinching himself, I think, when he went out for his first training session, that he was actually back. And I think a couple of days later, he made his first appearance, which I think might have been against Wickham, I think, who were top of the league at the time.
I think it was, and I'll tell you where that story's from. Where he kind of explained that story in full detail and gave us loads, was the interview with us back in, oh crikey, how long ago was that?
It's got to be 2 years, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about 2 years ago, because Fletcher, yes, it was, because we just travelled up to Stoke, and the actual interview was done from a hotel room in Stoke.
Well, when he come back, Manny, Alan Connell was the owner of the number 10 shirt. So Fletcher, he took number 33, I'm not too sure, but I don't know whether that was just don't know. Do you know, Craig? Do you know why Fletcher took the number 33? Was it just because
No,
or what?
I could certainly ask him. But I think he can pick whatever number he wants. He's he is that much of a legend. If he could pick whatever number he wants, and some players can be like that, I think, can't they? Really, he had the legendary status when he come back and chose that. So.
I hope that answers. Well, I hope I've answered that the best I can for you, Manny. Anyway.
Yes, you have indeed, mate. And I think it reminds me of several players who, decide to come back. I remember when Sol Campbell came back to Arsenal, instead of getting the 23 that he used to wear, which was worn by someone else, he got 31. When Paul Scholes returned to Manchester United, he ended up having number 22. So instead of his favourite 18. So yeah, that sort of answers my query in a very big way. I just didn't know if he was still at the club when he was allotted that number, or whether he was it was a different under different circumstances. Now I do know. So thank you very much indeed, sir. Our Bournemouth historian for a reason.
Well, I tried to be, but I'm sure there's stuff that I sometimes get wrong. But yeah, here he is.
Yeah, I do apologise. There was a little bit of a dip in the connection there. So yeah, let's go on to the next player, shall we?
Right.
Oh dear, we was talking just a minute ago, wasn't we, about players that had kind of
I
mistakes.
think might have been a little bit cursed after Fletch had it.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah. Obviously, this isn't in order of who had the shirt number first and blah blah blah. But yes, our friend Jordan, I was allocated that number when he first come. He actually wore that number at Liverpool, didn't he, as well? 33.
He did, yeah, he did.
Absolute
Jordan,
wanted though, wasn't he? Do you know? I don't know if you or Manny or yourself can remember, but he actually burst onto the scene at Wickham, didn't he? Playing League, was it League One at the time?
yeah, League One, I
And
think.
he was an absolute sensation. And then obviously that's when he got noticed.
Went to Liverpool. Didn't really. Well, I think he played a couple of games for him, didn't he, as well?
See, I got a funny feeling. There was a story when Sterling went to City,
Yeah.
and I think Liverpool come out with not exactly worded like this, but
Hmm.
Jordan Ibe is going to be a much better player than Sterling. So I think they were trying to make out they weren't too bothered with Sterling. Really, in fairness to him, I mean, it didn't work out for him down at Bournemouth for various reasons, but it's a shame really because he was or still is. I'm not too sure where he is now. I think he's in Turkey, isn't he? Is he playing in Turkey?
I don't even think he's playing for them now.
It's a real shame because when he was playing at Wickham, and even certain games he played for Liverpool, he did look quality, and we had a glimpse of it, but we didn't really have the consistency with it, did we?
He looked skillful. There were some games where he was really, really good, and um, Arsenal, actually against Arsenal, was one of his best games I've ever seen him play for us. He scored in that game as well, didn't he?
Are we
He
talking about
scored
the
against yeah, he scored
Yep.
against Arsenal. Yeah, with a 2-1 win.
Yep. 2-1.
Yeah,
January 2018.
yeah.
At that time, Arsene Wenger was still at the club, and he, thankfully for him and the club's sake, was politely asked to leave. It had to happen.
Mm. I think Jordan Ibe. He used to. One of the most annoying games. I think it was either against West Brom or Swansea. Um, I, I'm toying with West Brom. He was running down that wing. He'd taken on a West Brom player, and then, unbeknown to anybody in the stadium, and I don't know if you remember this, Matt, he turned round. There was plenty of space in front of him. He turned round and then decided he was going to take on that same player again, and then lost the ball. And you thought, hold on a minute, why didn't you just cross it there?
Yeah. I remember FA Cup game against Brighton on a cold January,
Yeah.
and Rico was playing,
Yes.
and he was overlapping Ibe, and he was calling for the ball, making space so he could pass to him, and it was almost like he'd forgotten how to pass a football. The ball at his feet, and he just looked clueless of what to do with it.
Mm.
So yeah, there was some funny moments, wasn't there? But it was a shame really that it didn't work out.
I've got to be honest. Well, one thing that will epitomise Jordan Ibe, and this is going to be horrible to say, unprofessional.
Yeah,
I don't think he wasn't a professional in any sense of the word in my eyes, and that's a shame. That's a shame. Because there's certain players, like Fletcher, Steve Fletcher, and Fletch won't, mind me saying this. Fletcher didn't probably have the talent that Jordan Ibe did, but what Fletcher did was he gave 110% every time he went onto that pitch.
Oh
Jordan
yes.
Ibe is a player who went onto that pitch and probably gave 40% sometimes.
Typical. The more talent you have, the less effort you seem inclined to give. And
Mhm.
even if you have one or two seasons where everything you touch turns to gold and the world is at your feet, it can all just disappear in the blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Just taking a look at Ibe's career, it definitely does have a lot of echoes of what's happened to Bamidele Jermaine Ali, better known as Dele Ali, of course.
Yes.
Star kid at Tottenham Hotspur under Pochettino, but somehow found himself completely frozen out. And he also has had a sojourn in Turkey with Besiktas, if I'm not wrong, but that did not go very well, pun intended. And of course, he is now trying to recover from his from an injury, and it'll remain to be seen what happens to him. And interestingly enough, Ibe was mentioned, was spoken about. I mean, he actually spoke in January when he was at his second spell at Derby County about suffering from depression. And if that is true, then it could possibly explain in many ways why his career never really took off. Because sometimes, if you're not really mentally in tune with the game while you're playing, it will sometimes lead to that decreased effort when you are actually on the field. And it just goes to show that in any walk of life, no matter how much talent you have, if mentally you're not in tune, if you're not really eager to do it, then, there's no real point in simply just going over there to make up the numbers. And just as Dele Alli might now consider retiring from football altogether, which would be an almighty shame,
Yeah.
I think that's probably the path that Jordan Ibe ended up taking after his. He didn't play a single game with Adanspor, from what I'm seeing, and I think that's pretty much it. I mean, he's 27 now. He doesn't have a club. I don't know if he's going to continue to play again, but we're going to have to see. If he really wants to, resurrect his career, he is going to have to, really work a lot harder. And as Dele Alli will find out, the days of being, the star, being the man, they're all gone now. All the talk about being the new wonderkind, ancient history. You've got to start a new path somewhere.
It really is a shame because you think how, football is a privileged position to be in, and your career is only so long. It's a short period of time. Those ones that become legends, and in fact, during the preview, um, with Sam Chaplin from the West Ham, on the West Ham preview, we were speaking about Mark Noble. There's a man that is similar to Steve Fletcher. Mark Noble again, you could say wasn't a player who was one of the most talented, so to speak, but he's a legend at West Ham because he gave 110% every time he ran out for him. Fletcher did the same for us. Brett Pittman, you could say, is another player who always gave 110% whenever he ran out on that football pitch. And I wonder if Jordan Ibe will regret that one day and think, maybe, if I had, given my all, I could have been a legend. Maybe not at Bournemouth, but somewhere.
Yeah, mate, listen, there are so many players like Hybe. I've mentioned Dele Alli, and obviously, if you want to go back a long way, you can even look at Lee Sharp, who had the world at his feet when he was at Manchester United, but kept getting his feet injured far too often. Ended his career playing non-league football and ended up retiring in his early 30s because he decided he didn't want to, he just couldn't hack it anymore. You compare his career path with his old mate Ryan Giggs, and it tells its own story. And maybe he'll look back on it and think of things, but bear in mind his depression is a bit of an issue. I think this probably could be a time when, if he doesn't find another club and decides to end his career, it just means that he's going to have to, try and do something else to make a life for himself. And it's sad, but it is what it is. And hopefully it'll be a case of a cloud that will have a silver lining.
Yeah, definitely. Well, fingers crossed for him. We wish him all the very, very best wherever he goes. But yeah, hopefully we'll see him on a pitch at some point. But let's go on to the next one. And there's a man we know currently in the squad as well. Matt, far away.
Yeah, Chris Mepham. So we signed him from Brentford.
Yes.
He came in and took the number 33 shirt. At the time, obviously, you had Cookie here, you had Ake, Frano. So, quite a bit of competition. So, I don't think, if I remember rightly, he had, as many starts as he tends to get these days. But, I think this season, obviously he's now wearing number 6, but I think this season he is he's come on leaps and bounds. I think he's I think with his World Cup experience, he's I think he gets a lot of, at times, quite negative comments. And at times I've, when, he's had an off day, I thought, oh God, what, there's got to be, some reason why he looked not great today. But I mean, this season he's been absolutely superb at times. And I think same with, Stevens and Marcus Sensei, they've all played well.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
And I think he's one of these players who gets the criticism, but tries to develop himself and put that right.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that time at Brentford. Gives the penalty away in the playoffs, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I think at the time we were pretty much in control of it.
Red card as well.
And the red card. So,
yeah.
But he's come back from that.
He has.
Moments like that, with his international experience as well, has made the guy a better player.
I think he's come on leaps and bounds this season. I think, his confidence has improved. I remember when we first signed him, it was 2018, wasn't it? I and no, maybe 2019, and I was in a Haven holiday park, and was stood at the bar, and of course I had the Bournemouth shirt on. I do, and Brentford fan come up to me and was talking about Chris Metham, and he said he's a great player, excellent player. We don't want to lose him, and he sang his praises, and said what a great player Chris Metham is. And to be honest, the Brentford fans think a lot of him, which says a lot. Of course, they probably think a lot of him as well after that playoff semi-final. But seeing as we went up the season after, I think we shall scrap that one. they probably love him even more after that because, of course, it helped them get to Wembley. Yeah. Personally, I think if we had got to Wembley that year, we would have been playing in the Premier League a year earlier. We would have beaten Swansea in the final. We would have beaten Swansea in the final, definitely.
Because they were the ones we wanted.
Yeah, they were poor, weren't they?
They weren't a great side, were they, that year?
Who was the other team? Barnsley, wasn't it, in the the other playoff?
Yeah,
and Barnsley looked good.
Yeah, we didn't want to play Barnsley, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, they looked very, very good, and then of course got relegated the year after to League One. Shows how quickly football can change.
Funny, innit? Things work out.
Yes, it is. Huddersfield. There's another one. Huddersfield fighting relegation this season. They've just got outside the relegation zone, actually. In fact, so Huddersfield Town Fan TV will be very, very happy with that, I'm sure. But
yes, he will be. He will be. He will be. I follow him on Twitter. I speak to him frequently, and he is quite, forthright in his view that getting Neil Warnock back to the club was the best decision that they could make. And he's certainly gotten the players playing for the badge and the shirt again, which Mark Fotheringham simply wasn't able to do. So happy days. Hope it continues for him.
Yep, definitely. Let's have a look at the next player. And there is our current number 33. Jordan Zamora. We did a show on Jordan Zamora. Please do go and check that out. Good player. Good player. Young player. Maybe a bit raw. Will get better. I'm going to be losing him though.
Yeah, it is a shame. It is a shame. Real talent.
Yep.
I think we've said everything we need to say about him in that Jordan Zamora video. We don't link him. What's gone on recently to something that's similar that went on before with another player.
Yes, we shan't mention his name.
Totally different situation.
Yeah.
He's not signing the contract. He's signed a new contract with another club. And to be fair, I agree with the decision that the club's taken by removing him from the squad, and wish him all the best for the future.
Yeah, and like Matt says, do go and check out that video as well, because we do explain the whole thought process around that. But I think he'll be always remembered at this football club. It was a shock because the pictures of him, sat in front of, when we got promoted, sat there in front of the sign saying that we were promoted. He seemed so happy. He seemed so to enjoy it so much, and I think he probably still does. But I think he's been poorly advised. But go watch that video for all that.
The link will be in the description. Is that what you say?
Yes. The link will be in the description. So, some other names. Go for it.
Couldn't find many pictures here of him actually in a Bournemouth shirt. So this is like I say, Lawrence picked me quite a tricky one. Yeah, Joe Bennett. I think he come on loan to us from left back. He was first season we were in the Premier League. I think he come on loan from, was it Villa? I think it was Villa.
Yeah, I think so.
But I don't think he ever made an appearance for us. He might have made in a cup appearance, but I'm pretty certain he didn't ever play in the Premier League for us.
Where is he now?
He's been about a bit, and he
Hmm.
not too sure where he is now. Jamie Davidson was in the youth team. Lots of injuries.
Yeah.
Issued the squad number. Was on the bench, I think, a couple of times. Same with Curtis Allen. He was also a youthie that was needed, and was issued the number. And Adam Green, I believe, was a defender that we signed on loan from, I believe it was Fulham, and I think he made a couple of appearances for us. But for next week,
There we are. Sam Harrison has picked the number this week. I didn't know he was picking the number, but he has picked the number. There's a great photo there of Bryn.
He's going to love that.
Yep. Great picture of Bryn there from Gavin and Stacey. And he's picked number 9. He's made it a little bit easier, I guess, hasn't he?
Let's put it this way. That is already done and ready to go.
See, you've got efficiency on this channel. You've got efficiency on this channel.
Somebody
We have
said-
swapped places because, of course, my connection ballsed up a little bit earlier on, but I am back. It was a very, very small interruption, so I'm not going to let you play guess the difference. That's what's happened. So, of course, we have got a game on Sunday on TV, and it's against West Ham United. And let's have a look at some players who have played for both the Hammers and the Cherries. So, shall we take it away?
Let's go then.
Well, it's the obvious one. What a legend. We did mention him actually last week, didn't we? But I remember him playing for West Ham as well. Very, very good player. Such a good prospect at West Ham. And of course, when we signed him, was remarkable, and he played such a pivotal part in our squads, really.
Yeah. Like I say, we had a discussion about his future last week, didn't we?
Yes.
And yeah, on his day, fantastic player.
Yeah.
Like I say, he's been a favourite of mine over the years. Really enjoyed watching him in a Bournemouth shirt.
Yeah. Unfortunately, plagued with injuries. Really plagued with injuries, but he will forever be a legend.
Definitely.
Let's have a look at the next one.
Obviously.
There we are. It's the obvious one. Of course. We know him too well. Do we need to say anything more about Harry Redknapp? Because I think we've told everybody. Well, Harry's told everybody his time at both West Ham and Bournemouth in our first ever interview with Harry Redknapp.
Link in the description.
The link is in the description. So go to check that out. It is on 31,000 views. Is that Virgin on 3 years now? So quite a long time ago now.
It's got to be.
That was during COVID, I think, that I interviewed Harry first time round.
Oh god. Yeah, it must be. Yeah.
There we are. But yeah, go watch that. And there he is in the red and black. Tell you what, that looks so similar, doesn't it, to those retro shirts that we got. I tell you what, if you haven't got a retro shirt yet, go get one from the club shop because they're brilliant. They're brilliant. Although I did get some comments actually about what the bloody hell are you wearing when I was interviewing Harry in the away retro shirt the other day. So obviously haven't seen some of our kits throughout the years. And Matty Holland, of course, was at West Ham and at Bournemouth as well, part of the 1997 team, the Winter Gardens. There's quite a lot of images of him back then, isn't there, Matt?
Yeah, yeah. Wasn't many for West Ham, but he was mentioned in the famous. I think it was like a fans forum, wasn't it? Where
Yes.
Harry was getting some grief off a West Ham fan saying about Frank Lampard, and Harry come back and said that Frank Lampard would be a world class player, and the likes of, was it Scotty Cannon and
Scotty
Matt Holland,
Cannon, yes.
Matt Holland,
Yes.
that Lampard is reach the peak that they wouldn't. And to be fair, I don't think Scotty Cannon did, but Matt Holland didn't have a bad career. Obviously represented Ireland at the World Cup as well, didn't he? So
Yep.
yeah, obviously not quite to Frank Lampard's goal scoring exploits, but great player for Bournemouth, good captain. Went on and had a good career.
Ipswich
Definitely.
Town, Charlton Athletic, and as you've said, nearly 50 caps for Ireland. But I'm just wondering here, if you take a look at his history, he never actually played for the West Ham first team. So does he really find a place in here? I'm just wondering, though.
Yeah, well, I kind of just done it, as if, because there's a couple of others as well that have only represented West Ham in the youths.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose it has to count, though. I mean, I don't want to impugn your work. I know how. I know the quality of the work you do. I'm just curious, though, because Holland obviously has to find a mention in any list, no doubt about it.
Yeah. Matty
Enjoyed watching
Holland
him.
as well, did fantastically well at Ipswich.
Yeah.
I remember when Ipswich were promoted to the Premier League and they finished, wasn't it, 5th in their first season?
I think it was.
Yeah, I think you're about right, because they were absolutely awesome, weren't they?
Yeah, I
But
believe it's the best ever finish from a promoted side.
Because didn't they go down the following season?
They did, yes. Yes, they did, I think.
That
I
was the
think
days
you're
of
right.
like Richard Wright in goal, and
Richard Wright, Marcus Stewart, who else played for Ipswich that time?
Jim McGilton, Martin Rouser. And
Was
I do
Venus
seem
there?
to... Who?
Mark Venus as well, wasn't he there?
Don't quite remember. I do seem to remember that a certain Tony Mowbray was player manager at Ipswich at the time they got promoted, but he never played for the club in the Premiership, which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah.
Titus Bramble at Ipswich then?
Titus Bramble, I think, was, yeah.
Ooh, Bramble.
A young Kieran Dyer?
Yes, I think you're right. I'm racking my mind back. That was the year 2000 or 2002. One of those two.
I'm going to get a job on a Ipswich fan channel, I think. Tractor picking.
Tractor picking.
Good
You know
one.
what? We should get Benjamin Bloom on for that, because I tell you what, Benjamin Bloom, big Ipswich fan, he'll probably remember it all, and he'll know everything off the top of his head as well about that season, I'm sure.
How they did that season. I totally forgot about that. But
Yeah,
what an absolute record to have, finishing 5th in your first season back in the Premier League, which it would have been then, because they were in the Premier League before, weren't they?
that's if I've got that right.
I think you are right. You finished in some position like that.
I think
This
I
was
have.
before the days that fifth counted for anything, wasn't it? I don't think even third and fourth counted for anything back then, did it?
No. Oh, I might be right. No, I am right. I am right. They did
Right
finish.
up,
It
Paddy.
was the year 2000, 2001.
That's right.
Um, and
Was that the year Watford also come up?
um, no, Watford weren't in there. Um, however, here's a question for you both. Without checking,
Right.
Bradford City, Coventry, and which other team went down that season?
Oh, right. I'm definitely not checking.
Neither am I.
I'm Bradford.
It was Bradford,
Coventry.
Coventry, and another team.
I want to say Sunderland, perhaps.
Nope, Sunderland finished 7th that season, which
Ooh.
was a remarkable finish.
Coventry, because Coventry ain't been back since then, have they?
No, they haven't. Neither's Bradford.
No, they're a couple of the clubs that plummeted, weren't they?
I'll
Well,
say this: what
yeah, yeah.
this club?
I think I might have it. Manchester City.
Yes, Manchester City was relegated.
Well done.
Yes.
I was just about to say this club have definitely been back. So yeah, it was Manchester City that was relegated. So that was, in fact, that was the second time they've been relegated from the Premier League.
Yeah, because I remember the first time they got relegated, if I'm not mistaken. I'm
Hmm.
sure Manny will put me right back on the right track if I am wrong. But I believe they were playing away from home on the last game of the season under Joe Royal. And
Yes.
they thought a draw was enough. They were getting, I think, mixed messages from the crowd. And it
Mhm.
turned out draw wasn't enough and they went down.
Yep,
I remember
you're
what
quite
year it
right.
was. Joe Royal was manager.
I think that was 1996, and the reason I think it was that. Oh, was it now? I tell you what, this is now becoming Manchester City picking. Blue Moon picking. I think it was 96 because how many seasons did they go
Well,
straight through the first division?
let's put it this way: we played Man City in Division Two in
Yes,
1998 to 99 season, and that was when they
it
had the
was.
playoff
Yeah.
final against Gillingham, and they beat
Yes.
them in the playoff final on penalties. Nicky Weaver
Hmm.
saved from their centre back. What was his name? Big bloke Butler,
Yes.
something like that. And yeah, I remember vividly watching that playoff final.
Let's move on. Let's move on. Here we go. Steve Jones.
Yeah, what a player!
Yeah.
One of my favourites from a kid. Great striker. I remember him scoring two against Chesterfield at home, and it was like 96.
Mhm.
Great day that was. Beaten 3-0 on the day. I remember that because it was the first game I ever sat in the seats.
Mhm.
Um, in the old stadium, we sat in the Norris block. I've
Yes.
still got the ticket stub somewhere.
Mhm.
Yeah, great memories. Yeah, West Ham should have scored more goals, played more games for West Ham. Really, he was a great
Mhm.
striker. Um, played in that epic playoff final against Sunderland for Charlton, the one that went all the way. Crazy playoff final. I don't know if five of you remember it, but I think it was 3-3, and it went all the way to penalties. The
Mhm.
likes of Sasa Ilic and um,
Yes.
um, Clive Mendonca, players like that for Charlton, and
Yep.
great,
Yes.
great final that was.
Oh, one of the best finals out there. Yeah. And Charlton, it was the first time they'd been back to the Premier League since the early 80s, wasn't it? So back to the top flight, if I'm right in thinking.
Yeah, you are probably right. Yeah, because that was under Alan Kirbishley, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And he took over Charlton earlier on in the 90s with another former Bournemouth connection, Steve Gritt, I
Yep.
believe. Yeah, good
Well,
time.
definitely.
I love
Let's.
that. I love that home kit as well. Look at that, beautiful. I had that as a kid. My very, very first Bournemouth shirt was that shirt,
Is that
and
another one we should really, redo?
yeah, redo it. But don't make it as itchy as the original one. God, did that used to itch?
They always used to, didn't they, when they all
Oh,
the old
All right.
kits? Here we are. A man that we've had on, Paul Mitchell. The link is in the description. But yes, Paul Mitchell, a legend at the football club and still involved as well.
yeah, he's does all the statistics, doesn't he?
He
You
does,
know what?
yes.
I don't really remember much as a player, but
Hmm.
from watching his interview and from what I've heard from people that remember, um, great talent and another player that's. I mean, he goes quite into depth with his injury problems, didn't he, in the interview?
He did, yes, yeah.
And he literally played football literally around the corner from where I live, on St George's Field as a kid. So I actually passed him a little while ago walking his dog. Um, nice guy.
He
Um,
is, yeah,
nice to have him on again because I think he really enjoyed the interview he did with us.
yeah. Should we get him on again? We'll get Paul Mitchell on again, definitely.
Yeah,
And
yeah, definitely.
yeah, I'll get in contact. We'll get in contact with him. And there we are, Rio Ferdinand. Believe it or not, Rio Ferdinand played for AFC Bournemouth. It wasn't that many games, was it? But
I think it was about 10, 11, something like that.
yeah,
But when he was down here, Mel Machin was manager at the time. And literally, I mean, if you read his book, yes, I've got it, believe it or not. Um, but yeah, if you read his first autobiography he brought out, he was addressed by Machin as purely class. Didn't call him Rio, didn't call him Ferdy, didn't call him Ferdinand, called him class because he was a class player. Obviously, went on to excel, didn't he? For the
oh
likes of
crikey, yeah,
United and all the other clubs he played for, and Leeds. He was a quality player. I think wasn't he a British transfer record at one point when he went from West Ham to Leeds?
yes, he was,
He
yes,
was, yes.
yeah,
I thought so. But
for a defender as well.
yeah, what was it? Something stupid like 29 point something million, wasn't it? Or something?
Yeah, something very, very high for a
But
defender.
yeah,
Especially in that era, that was a lot of money.
oh yeah, big time, big time. It's like now when you look at Shearer, when Shearer broke the record in '96, like what was it, 15 million?
Yes.
And you think now teams buy a average left back for that kind of money, don't they?
Yeah.
It's just crazy how you look back over the last sort of 30 years from, when you had Trevor Francis about 40 odd years ago break, the barrier of £1 million.
Mhm.
You look how money changes hands now. It does really put things into perspective, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
yeah, was quite friendly with Jason Brissett when he was down here.
Yep.
Didn't they used to go out to the clubs and that and together? But yeah, read his book. I'll plug his book because we've got nothing to put in the description here. So I'll plug his book. Get his book. It's a great read.
Matt loves a book.
I love
Let's have a look at the next player. Well, there we are. You can't forget him, can you?
No.
Another man,
Mm.
absolutely legend. Um, we need Lawrence on to talk about Ted McDougall.
Yeah,
I think he said pretty much all he needed to last week, didn't he?
this matey. Yeah.
Yes, matey, man that we'd love to have on. Well, he'd be great. He would be great to have on. But yeah, go watch last week's one because Lawrence will tell you everything you need to know about Ted McDougall. And Ryan Fredericks, of
He's become
course.
a bit of a habit of appearing in this, isn't he?
Yes, he has. Yeah, he's a bit of a regular now, a cherry picking regular, but a good player, a good player. You know, I wasn't blown away when we signed him from them, but you know, he's I think he's done a good job for us.
Yeah, no,
So
totally agree. I mean, like I said before, a few West Ham fans said to me, "Oh, you don't want to be signing him." But I
mm,
think what he has done when he has been fit has been good.
yep, definitely. And wow, what a legend! What a
Yeah,
legend!
I don't know if either of you have done it, but
Hmm.
um, his podcast on BBC Sounds. I
Hmm.
started listening to that today. You'll love episode 2, Craig. Harry's on it,
Good old
um,
Harry.
and it is really really good, really really good. So give
Yeah,
that a listen. Yeah, uh,
Jermaine Defoe. I think a quality player.
yeah. Um, goes. I mean, the podcast. If you give it a listen, he goes real. He goes all the way back to when he come to Bournemouth, and Harry and him talk about when they signed him as a kid, and how Harry goes to all the youth games and stuff. It was really good insight. Good
Yeah,
insight. Give it a listen if you can.
yep, definitely, definitely. And there's Carl Fletcher.
Played in the FA Cup final for West Ham.
Hmm. Yep.
Uh, Gerrard final.
Yes.
If you remember rightly.
Hmm.
Who was the manager at that time for West Ham? It was
I would put money on Pardew.
I
Yep,
think
it
it
was
was
Pardew.
Pardew.
It
Yeah,
was Pardew.
Yeah,
yeah,
Pardew. But yeah, great player, midfielder. But the season we got promoted from Division 3, the
hmm
2003 playoff final. That season he played centre back for most of it. Scored 2 goals in that final. Um, Great player.
yeah,
I got a
yeah.
picture somewhere signed by Carl Fletcher and Steve Fletcher. After Fletcher scored a goal somewhere, must dig it out sometime.
There we are. You got loads and loads and loads of pictures. So, Fletcher, Carl Fletcher did win promotion, didn't he, with West Ham back
Yeah,
to the Premier League?
I believe so, if I
Yep.
remember rightly.
Yep. They were promoted in 2005, and that was the season before they reached the FA Cup final.
I thought so. I did think, that because they reached the FA Cup final, like you say, the Liverpool fight against Liverpool. Um, yeah, that would have been under Pardew, I believe, because Pardew got them back up, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah,
Both of them were under Pardew.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the next player. Go on, you take this one, Matt.
Amos Ferreira.
I was
Um,
always going to struggle saying that. For
yeah,
where?
uh, brought in by O'Driscoll.
Hmm.
Was kind of to challenge the likes of James Hayter. Um, Struggled with injuries down there. I think he had a nasty, nasty leg break. I think,
Hmm.
if memory serves me right. Didn't play for the West Ham first team,
Hmm.
only the youth,
Yeah.
I believe. But yeah, another name to chuck in there. A lot of expectation when he signed. A lot of expectation, but just didn't get the breakdown here, really.
Well, let's flick on to the next one.
Legend. Dale Gordon.
Yes.
I think, if I remember rightly, played for Norwich during the 80s. And I think that's where he got the connection with Mel Machin. Also played for Rangers and then went on to play for West Ham. He actually signed for Bournemouth as a player coach. So when he came to Bournemouth, he was player coach. There's a picture of him there playing at the racecourse ground at Wrexham. That was the best photo I could find of him.
Yeah.
I'd have to find that from a match day programme. But yeah, Dale Gordon. Quite a big for Bournemouth at the time, quite a big-ish, well-known name.
And next one.
I can't pronounce this, so don't ask me to. I don't know if Manny can help out
Is,
here.
is the spelling correct though? Manny Omoyinmi.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, you got it spot on.
Loaned into us same season that Dale Gordon come to us. I don't really remember much about the player, to be fair.
Don't think he had many games, did he?
No, I don't think he had the longest of loan spells with us.
No.
But a lot of connections with West Ham. I mean, there's some players that I've missed out of as we'd be here all night. But
Yeah.
when Harry was there, especially, there was a real connection between Bournemouth and West Ham in terms of their youngsters coming to Bournemouth. I mean, another one I could have stuck in here was Terrell Forbes,
Yeah.
Stevland Dang. What was his name? Defender. Young kiddie.
Oh, I think I know.
He actually had to go back because he caught laryngitis.
Oh,
War number 27, I think, before Jermaine Defoe come in and took the number. I can't remember his name now. Angus, I think was his surname. Stevland Angus, is it?
I'm gonna just do some Wikipedia and here we go. Manny's probably already on that.
What exactly do you want me to look up?
His surname was Angus. Stevland Angus.
Stedland Angus.
Stevland Angus. He played
Stedland Angus, yes, found him. I found him.
Played seven times for Bournemouth, 2 as substitute.
Yep.
And luckily I just found that, and that's what's told me.
Yeah. Yeah, so Manny Aminyi, I think I've said that right. Played seven times.
Yep.
Yeah. And most of his career was in, of course, the lower leagues and then, of course, non-league as well, where he ended his career at Worthing.
What?
At Worthing, yeah. So that's Manny Aminyi. Another couple, Massey Holmes, Zavon Hines. Remember, Zavon Hines was quite a big name, wasn't he, at West Ham for a little while, and then kind of fell off. It all fell off a cliff, didn't it? Really, for him. That was the Pardew days.
Yeah. Matty Holmes, Ian Bish.
Yeah, you can't forget Ian Bishop.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit surprised why he didn't feature at the beginning of this list, given that he's also a candidate for the Bournemouth Hall of Fame.
I'm wondering how many slides are on here. There's a lot.
To purchase.
Yeah. So
here's one for you.
Oh crikey, yes.
Now, if you like the film Mike Bassett, England Manager, he is in that film as one of the players. I liked Scott Mean when he played for Bournemouth. I mean, if I remember rightly, he come back in 1999, I think, and played one season and was released again. But yeah, remember him quite a bit when I was growing up. Two players here. Stephen Henderson, first season with the Championship. I think he come in on loan, probably played 2 games. I think got injured, went out again. So I think we had quite a few goalkeepers in and out that season, if I remember rightly.
Yep.
Keith Miller played for the club for a long time, but way before any of us. David James. Actually forgot he played for West Ham, to be fair. But yep, David James.
Yep.
Current one.
Oh yes, Darren Randolph.
Obviously,
Uh-huh.
he hasn't played for us yet, has he? But let's chuck him in there. Why not? Give the new boy a mention. Bobby Howe, quite a well-known player up at West Ham. Played, I think, about 100 times for Bournemouth. Keith Rowland, good youngster in the 80s for Bournemouth. Late 80s, I think. Craig's best mate. Actually, you know what? Until I started doing this, I don't even remember Jimmy Quinn being associated with West Ham, to be fair. So it was quite an interesting one to find that.
That was quite an interesting one. I associate Jimmy Quinn more with a dog.
Uh, Jack
Had to put that in there.
played on loan for us during our first Championship season. I think he had a nasty injury, might have ended his career.
Yeah.
But yeah, he come on loan to us. Also played in the West Ham first team.
Yeah. There's a
Current player,
current one. Yes.
someone that we hopefully has an absolutely awful game on Sunday. Is Mr. Danny Ings.
Yeah.
And last but not least, let's see if you remember this one, Craig.
Yes.
Anthony Edgar.
Yes.
And that, like I say, I could have kept going, but I stopped there. I stopped myself.
Crikey. I wonder how many players have been transferred between the two clubs. I reckon it's got to be Virgin. There's probably about 50, 60 at the very least, would you say? They're one of the clubs that we do a lot of business with historically because of the Harry link.
Yeah. I wouldn't like to say exactly, but yeah, that's that concludes that for the
There
week.
we are. Well, there we go. A long list of players that have played for both sides that maybe you remember, maybe you forgot. Quite a lot there that racks your brains, and also one that walks the dog. So Jimmy Quinn loves this show. He really does. I've been told he subscribes, so make sure you subscribe as well. To be more like Jimmy. Shall we have a look? No, don't be more like Jimmy. Shall we have a look at the head-to-head with West Ham? So let's have a look at this. And Matt, do tell me something now. And we was discussing this before we actually even started recording. We might have a lot of links in terms of players moving between the two clubs. But have we got many games against West Ham?
Well, no is the answer. Mainly from we first played them in 1929 in the FA Cup. When we drew and then had a replay and lost.
Yes.
And then that was pretty much it until the late 80s when they dropped down to Division 2. And they picked up 4 points against us. Other than that, the only other time we played them was in the League Cup, which I think at the time was called the Worthington Cup.
It was
But I've got a
because
feeling we might have knocked Charlton out and then got drawn to West Ham. I remember this. I got the programme somewhere.
well, we've got a little bit of footage for you now.
As usual for the Hammers, back on the trail after the glorious win over Arsenal, and although Bournemouth proved worthy opponents, the Premiership class counted for more tonight.
Joe Sinclair.
Yes.
Joe, that takes. Oh, young Joe Cole.
Oh, yeah.
That's Scott Mean there, number 5. And this guy here, that's Krista Warren, who was actually a striker that Mel Machin, when he sold Jamie Vincent, he changed Krista Warren into a left back. Oh, Canio.
He's a legend, wasn't he?
Yeah, a bit of a nutter, but a fine footballer.
Harry wasn't very fond of what he did against Everton. Everton were quite respectful of him, though. They even given him an award.
Good block. So yeah, this takes me back. You can't do nothing with that, can you? That Markin, is that Keller?
Yes.
It was just the excitement of going to, you knew Bournemouth were going to go and play a Premier League side. And in actual, obviously we had sides come down, like Man United coming down in '97 for a friendly. I think we had Wimbledon the same year, friendlies and that, but not actual competitive action. I think this might have been the first Premier League side we had in the cup game since maybe '93, when I think we played Blackburn in court and at Eden Park. Oh. Who hit that?
Scott Mean.
There he is.
And that was not a mean effort by any means.
Hey.
There's Razor Redknapp. Did he go through Eddie there? Let's just having a quick look.
Shaka Hislop in goal.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's Eddie there.
Yeah. I think it was Razor Redknapp that went through Eddie. And
Lampard.
of course. And there's old Harry, our legend, our friend.
Well, at least he didn't celebrate.
He did not celebrate. He did not celebrate at all. But
saying that though, your left back there is completely caught out.
I think that concludes the pre-Premier League years against West Ham. But we've played them a lot more recently than we did in the previous 80 years, really.
You'd have to ignore the losses and the wins there, because this is West Ham's
yes,
wins and losses, but
very
obviously
equal.
Everyone will remember that famous game in August 2015.
Yep, the first win.
What a game!
Mm-hmm.
And everyone was hoping that Callum would do the business in the Premier League, and that game kind of proved that he could.
Yes.
I think Pewey was the other one that scored that day, if I remember rightly.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty even, isn't it?
It is. It is.
And as we look towards this Sunday, I mean, they had a good win last night. I think they won 5-2 on aggregate.
Yes.
So they're buzzing. After
Are
that,
they going to be fatigued? That was the question.
this is the other thing, isn't it? I mean, it's the whole Thursday Sunday argument, isn't it? Again,
Hmm.
let's hope they're fatigued and we get the 3 points out of them. But I'm going to give an honest score prediction for Sunday.
Go on.
It's going to be a draw.
Ooh.
Interesting.
I just think that West Ham know that they're still in it, and I think they're going to come down here. They know they're going to play hard. They're going to play hard for that.
Hmm.
They're too good, really, aren't they, to go down?
I think so. Yeah.
I've read also today that apparently it's already agreed that Moyes will leave at the end of the season, regardless of whether they stay up or go down, or whether they win the Conference League. Apparently, he be going. Don't know how true that is, but
Well, that would be interesting. And in fact, watch our opposition preview show because we discuss. The link is in the description.
there's a lot of things you got to put in.
There is a lot of links in the description, or you can just go hunting around the channel for it. But yes, we discussed that with Sam, and in fact, we discussed where do West Ham go next? Do they go to a British manager, which they have majority of the time gone for, or do they go continental? And it will be interesting. So, of course, I went for a Bournemouth win because I'm not giving the honest view. I'm being the optimist. Sam went for a West Ham win because he's quite an optimist as well. He wants West Ham to win. Um, Manny, you've got the defining vote here because Matt's gone for a draw. I've gone for a Bournemouth win. Our opposition preview guest went for a West Ham win.
Ooh, nice.
You're on the spot now.
I always love being a tiebreaker. And you know what? I am going to stick my neck out and go for a Bournemouth win.
There we are.
And yeah, because I tell you what, West Ham, never mind the effort they put in to win their match against Genk today, they also did put in quite a bit of effort to draw against us, although we absolutely got completely cocky and we just allowed them to come back into it through some stupid mistakes. And I think the key, obviously, will be to see if your midfield can try and nullify Declan Rice and Said Benrahma and not really allow them to have any sort of influence. And if you can do that, you pretty much shut them down. So I'm looking to see Tavernier having a really good game, as with Phil, Bill, Solanke, and several others. And I'm looking forward to it. Definitely just keep the momentum going, boys. Simple as that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think we should wrap it up now because I think we've covered pretty much everything for this game. So next week, number 9 is going to be the shirt number. Matt has already got it ready because he is efficient, unlike me. We are also going to do another couple of special shows. More of that will be coming, but if you hit the subscribe button, then you're going to be alerted to when they do get announced anyway. So I would do that if I was you. That would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and also join us next week for our cherry picking Saints special.
Yes. It is going to be at an earlier time because, of course, the game is on the 27th, which is a week today, or week Thursday, which is when we normally record. So is it a big one? Is it as big as we think it is? Because is it just bigger for Saints?
Well, let's put it this way: if Arsenal beat them tonight,
Yep,
and we beat them next week, then they're pretty much dead and buried, aren't they?
they are. Yeah.
So we'd love to do that, especially on their turf, wouldn't we?
Oh yes. Yes.
Revenge. It's a dish best served cold, and bear in mind, you lot worth flying high, but then a draw at home to Southampton pretty much started a bit of a slide. So you need to set the record straight. Make sure you tell them your days are numbered. We're the biggest South Coast club currently in the English top flight.
Here's a question, though. If we do get the result that me and Manny believe we're going to get and beat West Ham, 36 points, is it enough?
I would say it's enough to take the pressure off you. But it's not mathematical, is it?
Hmm.
So I would say when you get to 36 points, like I said, I still believe we'll end up with 42 points.
Hmm.
I still believe that because I think we should beat Saints.
Yes.
We should beat Leeds. Now, I don't know if either of you watched them play Liverpool the other night, but if I was a Leeds fan, I would have switched off. And I believe a point from West Ham.
Hmm.
I reckon we'll finish on 42.
Yeah.
But when
To
you
be
get to that
honest,
36, it is going to take the pressure off us, especially if there's more of a gap forming
yeah.
from us. But yeah, I think we'll take the pressure off a bit, but we're still going to have to get, some results to make sure we stay as far away from that drop zone as possible.
I think the fans because there's been a lot of people putting what they think their bottom threes are going to be in our Harry Redknapp relegation special video, and there seems to be a common trend here. Southampton fans don't seem to be anywhere, so I think that they're pretty much consigned to their fate. I think even the most optimistic Southampton fan would probably say that next season they're probably going to be going to Rotherham away. Leicester fans seem to have a little bit of optimism because of Dean Smith. Forest fans are not so confident. I think that they feel that they're going to really struggle. Leeds fans are always Leeds fans. They think that they're going to be fine and they're going to take on the world. But the one surprising group of fans who think they're completely and utterly doomed is Everton. They think they're completely and utterly doomed. And what do you make of Everton? Do you think Everton's days are numbered?
Um, I think I can see why they're saying that.
Hmm.
Has Dyche had the effect that I thought Dyche was going to have? No, not at the minute, but there's still time. I'm going to put it out there, and I reckon Everton will finish 17th.
I don't think they'll finish higher than that. I don't think they'll finish higher than that.
A reason
Dyche, if he
being,
keeps them up,
yeah,
has
the reason
done a remarkable
the
thing.
reason I say that
Mm.
is because I think West Ham would be all right.
Yeah.
I think Forest. I think I spoke to a Forest fan today,
Hmm.
and even he said, the amount of players that we've signed.
Hmm.
He said I would have much preferred to kept Samba, the goalkeeper, than have Henderson
Yeah.
for the part of the season they had him. And like he was saying, you can't sign all these players and expect that
Hmm.
to keep you in the Premier League. He actually thinks they're going to go down. And I personally think the bottom three will be Saints, Leeds, and Forest.
Saints, Leeds, and Forest. That'd be an interesting one. I just think Dyche has got a weaker
The problem they've got
team
is they've
than
got
he
no
did at
striker.
Burnley.
They got no striker.
No.
Is Calvert Lewin going to play again this season? Can't see it.
No.
So that's where he may come unstuck. Deutsch, being the kind of player that he was, I think should ruffle him enough to stop him conceding stupid goals. They've got a good keeper in Pickford.
Yeah.
There's players there that should be performing better. I don't know, I just got that feeling. I think Forest and Leeds, I think, are going to really, really struggle.
Yeah. Forest have got the worst running, and to be honest, Leeds isn't particularly great. I just think that Dyche had a better team at Burnley than he does at Everton. But
in terms of fight and spirit, 100%.
I think in terms of quality as well. I think he had a better team in terms of quality than he has at Everton.
I'd say it's
What do you reckon, Manny?
It is a fair shout, and especially when you take a look at the way Everton have been playing, they've Dyche is sort of being forced to live and die on that 4-5-1 formation. But as both of you have pointed out, he doesn't have a striker of note, and I really don't see Calvert-Lewin playing again, or maybe he could make a recovery, although by that time it'll be too little, too late. And more pertinently, if Everton do end up getting relegated, I cannot see him being eager to stay on with the club, which is going to be even worse. So here's the thing about Everton. I think they will obviously try their best to grind out results. I take a look at Forest as well, and I think that in theory, the quality in their team means that they should be able to find a result somewhere. For some reason, it's been crazy, really, because several of these teams, guys, have, had some poor patches and then had some purple patches, and it's been back to poor all over again. I mean, Leicester is a case in point, and after another poor patch, they sacked Rodgers and replaced him with Dean Smith. And Cooper as well was looking at his team to see his team finish in a comfortable mid-table position, but then a huge slump in form, and now they're back in the relegation dogfight. And I mean, the topsy-turvy nature of everything is really something that can that really surprises everyone here. And several of these teams do have the ability to pull out a good result whenever they can. I just don't know if they can do it consistently. And with Dean Smith, there were some signs against Manchester City that they could, do well. They are going to have to tighten up their defence, though, and make sure that they start scoring. It will invariably mean that Vardy will have to go back on the bench if he can't, find the target. And it really is a toss-up between Forest and Everton. I'm actually going to stick my neck out and say that Everton should be fine. And if I were to choose my bottom three right now, it'd be Southampton, who are already as good as gone. Leeds definitely look as though they're sinking fast, unless they can conjure up a miracle. And it could very well be that Forest might go down and Everton will stay up.
Interesting. But there we go. That is the relegation 3. I think I would probably go. To be honest, I think I could probably go with it. I think Southampton bottom, of course. I think Nottingham Forest will probably occupy 19th spot, and I think Leeds will go down. I think it'll be between Leeds and Everton in the end. But I've got a funny feeling, and I hope. Well, this is why I didn't want it to go down to that last game of the season, and I'm sure we'll be safe by this point. Touch wood. I've got a feeling Everton will win that last game of the season because that will be a cauldron, Goodison, because I think they'll still be in it till that point.
I think you're right with Everton. Yeah, there'll still be something to play for, and I think Leeds will on the same day. So it could be quite an interesting final day, but just as well that hopefully,
Yes,
we will not be part of it, and it be pressure all on Everton.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, guys, thank you again for joining in Cherry Picking. We will be back next week for the Southampton special, like Matt says. So we shall see you then. But from me, Matt and Manny, signing off. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next show.